Sunday morning, January 26, 2020. A helicopter lifts off from John Wayne Airport in Orange County. 9 people on board. One of them is the greatest basketball player of his generation. Another is his 13-year-old daughter. 39 minutes later, they're all gone. No mayday call, no warning. Just a hillside in Calabasas, California, and silence. The world woke up to headlines it couldn't process. Kobe Bryant was dead, but what actually happened up there in that fog? And why did it happen? Before we get into the crash, you need to understand what Kobe Bryant meant. Not just basketball, to an entire generation. He entered the NBA straight out of high school in 1996, 17 years old, drafted 13th overall, traded to the Los Angeles Lakers on draft night. What followed was 2 decades of dominance, 5 NBA championships, 2 Olympic gold medals, 18 All-Star selections, the 4th highest scorer in NBA history. But it wasn't just the numbers. It was the obsession, the relentlessness, the 4 a.m. gym sessions, the man who would practice alone for hours before his teammates even arrived. He called it the Mamba mentality, the idea that the only thing standing between you and greatness is the work you're willing to put in. He retired in 2016, going out with 60 points in his final game. Then he rebuilt himself, again. He won an Academy Award. He was writing children's books. He was coaching his daughter Gianna's basketball team, a girl who had inherited every bit of a father's fire. Kobe wasn't just living in retirement. He was building something new. And then, on a foggy Sunday morning, it ended. January 26, 2020. Kobe and Gianna were heading to the Mamba Sports Academy in Thousand Oaks, a youth basketball tournament. Gianna's team was playing. The group assembled at the airport, 9 people total. Kobe, Gianna, 3 of Gianna's teammates, their parents, the pilot. Their pilot that morning was ARA's O'Brien, an experienced aviator with over 8,000 flight hours. He'd flown Kobe dozens of times before. He was trusted. He was careful. The helicopter was a Sikorsky S-76B, a luxury aircraft, the kind you fly when money is no object. They took off just after 9 a.m. The weather was bad from the start. Dense fog, low visibility, the kind of morning where you can barely see your hand in front of your face. In fact, the Laps had already grounded their own helicopters that morning. The conditions were that bad, but the flight took off anyway. For the first part of the flight, everything seemed normal. Zobayan was navigating through the fog, climbing to avoid the marine layer, the thick bank of coastal fog that was blanketing Los Angeles that morning. He'd actually been in contact with air traffic control, requesting special visual flight clearance, permission to fly through the clouds without relying purely on instruments. That clearance was granted, but what happened next is where everything fell apart. At around 9:40 a.m., the helicopter was flying over the Santa Monica Mountains. The terrain was rising, the fog was thickening, and Zobayan made a decision. He began descending, banking left, apparently trying to turn back. What investigators believe happened next is called spatial disorientation. It's one of the most dangerous phenomena in aviation. When a pilot loses visual reference, when they can't see the horizon, can't see the ground, the inner ear starts lying to them. They feel like they are flying level when they are banking. They feel like they are climbing when they are diving. The instruments tell the truth. But sometimes, the body overrides the mind. At 9:45 a.m., the helicopter struck the hillside in Calabasas at over 180 miles per hour. The impact was catastrophic, instantaneous. There were no survivors. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, spent months investigating the crash. Their final conclusion, the cause was pilot error. Specifically, ARA's O'Brien became spatially disoriented in the clouds and lost control of the aircraft. But the investigation uncovered more than just what happened in those final moments. It revealed a pattern. Zobayan had been cited before, just 2 years earlier, for inadvertently flying into clouds. He'd violated the exact same type of rule, and he'd received remedial training. The question investigators couldn't fully answer: why did he take off that morning at all? The weather was clearly dangerous. His own company, Island Express Helicopters, had guidelines about flying in low visibility. Those guidelines were, at best, murky. There was no federal regulation requiring the flight to be canceled. There was no hard rule that said, this weather is too dangerous, you stay on the ground. And that gap between what the rules required and what common sense demanded is what allowed 9 people to board a helicopter into a fog-covered mountain range. The world's response was unlike anything seen for celebrity death in years. Vigils outside Staples Center, murals appearing overnight on walls across Los Angeles, fans gathering at the crash site. But behind the grief, a second scandal was beginning. In the days after the crash, Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies began sharing photos from the crash scene. Graphic photos, photos of the wreckage, photos of the victims. They were shared at a bar, shared on phones between officers. One deputy allegedly showed them at a awards event. Vanessa Bryant, Kobe's wife, who had lost both her husband and her daughter that morning, found out. She sued Los Angeles County. In August 2022, a federal jury awarded Vanessa Bryant $16 million in damages. The jury found that the county had violated her constitutional right to privacy, that her loved one's images had been treated as entertainment. It was a second injustice, layered on top of the first. On January 26, 2020, a helicopter took off in conditions it had no business flying in. A pilot, experienced, trusted, and well-intentioned, made a decision in the fog that he couldn't recover from, and 9 people never came home. Kobe Bryant spent his entire life chasing greatness with everything he had. He raised a daughter who carried that same fire, and he died on a Sunday morning on his way to watch her play basketball. There was no conspiracy, no foul play, just fog, a mountain, and a decision that couldn't be undone. The real story of what happened to Kobe Bryant is this: a system with gaps, a morning with no margin for error, and a loss that a generation of people are still trying to make sense of.